Dash Daniels is off to a really impressive start this season. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. Ben Pfeifer joins me to break down everything to do with Dash and this start of the season. Ben, how you doing today?
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about Dash, prospect that I like and have been defending for a while. So it's good to see him look comfortable early on in the season, even though I do still have my concerns. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I always enjoy I'm glad the season is basically started because like the NBL has started. Got the two guys talking about. Got Dyalla Reyes played a bunch of games that I was watching this morning. Like it's a good time of year.
Yeah, the international season I think is always a great sort of, start to the draft cycle. And then you kind of maybe lose track a little bit of the guys until later on and then rediscover them. But it's always great to, get
Yeah, for sure. That's always how it goes.
with Dash, I know you've been high on him for a minute, and I've liked him for a while, but I've had my questions, I think, probably more than you. With this start in particular, I think what has impressed me the most, or maybe what has changed the most for me, I want to say, is that before I thought that, especially at, youth levels in Australia, Dash was kind of shoehorned into this point guard or lead guard type of role. Never really thought that was, his biggest strength as a decision maker or even as a ball handler. Always kind of preferred him in more of a secondary role. And now this season, now that he's a next star, he is playing as much more of a connector. I've seen him referred to as, more of a wing. I'm not quite there. I think that he's still pretty much a guard, but more so a connector than a lead or a primary ball handler. Yeah, I'm curious, Ben, where are you at with him? Do you think that maybe his game is shifting a little bit here?
I agree with you that I view him very much as like a connector guard as well. But like that's not like a negative thing at all to me. I don't think it's a problem that he's not like a pure wing or like might not have the strength to do that or like the ball skills to be a point guard. Where in an NBA where like players are like all different sizes and shapes and skill levels and initiators and offense comes from everywhere. Like you can have these utility players like Dash, who I think is a phenomenal defensive player, of course. But offensively, is just looking more comfortable as a driver, even than I kind of thought. I'm there. He's had some surprisingly nice drives early in the season, but I think he's a pretty good athlete in the open floor. Like he's pretty quick. He has excellent hands. Obviously, he's pretty coordinated. I think his feel is pretty solid. Like he can't really control the ball at this point, so a lot of his passes I think are inaccurate. But he can definitely like read some. I think he can read on the fly. I think he has some like good instincts as a cutter, like stampeding off the ball, good offensive rebounding, and like he's shooting well right now. He's made 3 of his 7 threes in 5 games, but, like, the shooting is still definitely an issue. But, yeah, he just looks like he's not a major negative out there, which is what he was at the FIBA U19 Eurobasket, which I think a lot of people kind of got down on him for, which I understand, but I disagreed with, and I'm glad he's kind of proving me right to start the season, at least to some extent.
Yeah, he's bouncing back nicely, I think. And I think you're spot on in what you're saying, right? Like his aggression to me just looks way different. I mean, he looks so much more assertive on his drives. I really liked how he's not just turning the corner now, but he's really extending his drives all the way into the paint. Before I thought that he had a little bit of an issue sometimes just against, minimal pressure or any sort of dig down or nail help. I thought that almost always kind of made him pick up his dribble or, double think himself. But now he looks so much more confident as a driver, as a decision maker as well. I think his handle, even though it's nothing crazy, it is looking a little tighter now. I'd like to see him add some more counters. Maybe he's a little, I would say, a bit of a straight line driver, I think, for the most part at this point. But he is, I would say, making progress as a ball handler. I've liked
For
his
sure.
passes that he's made. Again, nothing that's necessarily a home run, but it's more so about those reads that you were saying. His accuracy might still be a little inconsistent, but for the most part, I'm looking at his process, I'm evaluating that, and I'm thinking, okay, I see what he saw here. I can understand, why he's trying to make this pass. Maybe right now he's not exactly able to pull it off yet, but how about in the future? Do you think that Dash is almost always bound to be this connector kind of prospect, almost like his brother, honestly? Or do you think that his upside is a little bit higher than that?
From what we know at the moment, it seems like he's probably just a pure connector. Like, his handle is definitely more confident. I think his confidence as a whole is just so much higher. He's playing so much more physically. Like, I think in U19s especially, he was, like, shying away from contact on drives, not wanting to get hit, not wanting to, bang other players, but now he's driving into guys, throwing his shoulder into players to get to his little hop step floater. But I just am not sure he has, like, the dexterity or, like, the creativity as a ball handler to really get there. And he's a good athlete, but he's not, like, a crazy explosive one either. So I feel like he needs some pretty, like, crazy outlier development as, like, a pull-up shooter, because right now he just doesn't have the form, I think, to really take or make pull-ups. And I think he has the potential to be a good finisher, but there's obviously issues there as well. He relies on the floater, but yeah, I think I'd be kind of surprised if he was more than, like, a great connector on offense. But I do think he could be a really good one, just because, like we said, I think he can pass, he can rebound, he can cut. I think, like, the intermediate scoring could get to a point enough. But I yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine him getting to that point where he's like a real on-ball player. But I don't think that's like his pitch, obviously, but it's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You mentioned his defense, and I really love his defense too, right? I think that at this point in the NBA, off-ball defense is probably more valuable than on-ball defense. I like Dash in both fields, really, but for you, yeah, what do you like about Dash exactly on defense? And I think that as we look towards him in the NBA, probably a point of attack guy, definitely. I think that he'll switch onto some wings as well, probably. I would say 1 through 3 seems like a fair outcome to me. Do you agree? Do you think do you see it slightly differently? How do you evaluate Dash's defense?
Yeah, I think Dash is a crazy defender. Probably, like you said, 1 through 3, but I think I'm less caught up in, like, what his necessarily, like, positional versatility is, and just I think he can really be, like, one of the best defenders guarding those positions. Like, his feet and hips are absolutely crazy. The way he can pick up full court and change directions on the ball and, like, fluidly flip his hips around to close out and to stop and to change direction. Like, he just sticks to players on the ball in such an impressive way with his speed and his size and using his length. I think he's incredible at, like, using his hands to get deflections. He is such a good screen defender when he's not getting, like, just bashed by a strong guy. He has that same issue that I think every 17-year-old playing in the NBL is gonna have, where they're just gonna get destroyed trying to run through a screen. But, like, when he doesn't get destroyed, his agility and his footwork help him get right there. But and I think off the ball, he's excellent as well. So, yeah, I think he's a really high level defensive prospect, and that can, like, do a little bit of everything as a guard. But I think I don't know if I think his off-ball defense is better than his on-ball defense. That's a good question. Probably on-ball defense, but he's really good at both, I think.
I think uh, also on top of everything that you just said as well, right? Like, yeah, he's 17, and I mean, I think he's 17 until I want to say December 18 or something like that. But
Yeah,
basically,
he's
all
the
the way
youngest
until
player
the
in the
end of the
class,
year.
I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this context that he's in is pretty particular to him, not just because he is in the NBL at a time when, most prospects right now are looking towards playing in college, but he's in the NBL while being super, super young. Um, what exactly, or how exactly, I should say, do you evaluate him at this point in his career? Because I think that, we have to be careful to not overstate things with Dash because he's so young. But at the same time, obviously, when you are the youngest player in the class, everything that you do should get, in a way, rightly have a magnifying glass on it in a way. You should really be thinking about it, how young he is and how good he is.
For sure. I think it all really matters, and it's a lot of projection, right? I'm not yeah, I think we do have to be reasonable. Again, I'm not projecting that much growth on offense. Like I don't think the ceiling is that crazy, but I value high level traits. I value production at young ages, especially, in good leagues like the NBL, who, not the most talented in the world, but very physical, smart league, a lot of good players. Like it's not easy for, we've seen a lot of teenagers be terrible in the NBL, and then go on to be good or be terrible in the NBA, right? So the fact that Dash looks confident, and capable, and again, the fact that he's not just like holding up on defense, like he's legitimately a game changer, I think, on defense, like already at this stage in his league. Like he is a dominant on ball defender that is insanely hard to screen off and to switch on and to get away from. And I think as he like adjusts to the physicality and like the foul calling and just like the flow of the game, like he's just going to have some truly absurd offense, so some truly absurd defensive games. I think like he played, and again, it's still like he's not playing so many minutes. Like he played 18 minutes, I think, against Southeast Melbourne in one of his first games, and he was just like totally wrecking everything on defense. And I think there's a chance we get some more of those like later in the season. And I think like the fact that he's doing that as the youngest player in the class like is important to me. It matters, and I think it's good for me to project forward, and of course, right, it makes it easier to project offensively, but definitely doesn't excuse his issues. And like I said, I think it's mostly beneficial, like for how crazy of a defensive player he is at this age already. And when evaluating his like U19 performance, right, that he's playing against 19-year-olds, like he's playing against 19 and 18-year-olds. He was probably one of the younger players at the event. I don't know if he was the youngest. I don't know who the youngest player at the event was, but he was definitely probably, I don't think there were a lot of other 17-year-olds playing.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so either. And I mean, yeah, everything that you're pointing out, I think you're spot on. Like with Dash, I mean, the fact that he's so young and he's producing like this early on in the season, to me is just very unexpected because I think that, if we're looking later on around, March or something like that, and you're telling me that he's playing pretty well, yeah, I would believe you.
Yeah,
But at this
I
point,
think a
I
lot of
would
it
have
is
thought like,
sustainable, which is what I love. Aside from the 3-point shooting,
yeah,
like he's not a 43% shooter. I think he's going to be a bad shooter this season. But I think the fact that he's incredibly high level on defense and he's not like doing a ton on offense complicated. He's not making pull-ups or hitting a bunch of crazy contested shots. Like he's taking what the defense gives him, he's cutting, he's driving off the catch, he's driving an early offense, which I think he's going to be good at. And even if he's going to have rough stretches where he just like fades into the background on offense because sometimes he does that, like a lot of offensively or defensively slanted young players do. But yeah, I don't think like what he's done is crazy unsustainable. Like the stats are going to get worse, but I think in terms of just like process and projecting forward, like we're saying, I think most of what we've seen is pretty legit. I think, and I'm definitely buying for the moment. Of course, it's a long season, but
yeah, I'm with you. There will be a dip at some point, and I mean, there will be inconsistent moments for sure. But for the most part, I think that the broad strokes will remain more or less, pretty compatible with what we're seeing right now. One last question before we move on to the next guy that I want to cover here. With Dash, right now, if the draft was tomorrow or in a couple of weeks, where would you have him range wise for you? Because I think that I put out a video, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, talking about some international prospects. I said then that I would probably have Dash towards the end of my first round. After seeing him these last few weeks, he's probably moved up into, I want to say 15, 20-ish, around that range for me. Where is he at for you?
right now I have him like mid lottery on my board, about where I've had him for like the whole the entirety of the cycle, pretty much. I've gotten a little. I feel like I've gone the other way. I started a little bit higher, and then like I don't know. He is pretty worrisome on offense. But since you give the caveat of like if it was today, I think the obviously this is such an important sample for Dash just because like even he has so much less like high level good sample of high level basketball than most of the incoming freshmen, right? Because like there's isn't a ton of tape and isn't a ton of good data on him, but huge range, I think anywhere from like 10 to like 30, honestly, just depending on your risk tolerance at this point. As we learn more about him and as the season goes on, I think that range is going to narrow, obviously. And if he has like assuming he has the season, assuming he has the season I think he can have, I'll say like anywhere from like 10 to 15 seems like a good range to me on the player. I kind of think he can be, obviously has to be for the right team that has a good plan and is going to be patient and thoughtful with his development, especially on offense. Unlike the Pelicans were with his brother.
Ben, in this next part, we'll get into Kareem Lopez, but before we do that, can you remind everyone where they can find your great work and where they can follow you everywhere on social media?
Yeah, just Twitter at BJPF_ or on YouTube, just my name, Ben Pfeifer, doing a bunch of high school stuff right now, Border League, but NBA, college, draft, everything pretty much, articles, videos. But yeah, just follow me on Twitter and my YouTube, and pretty much everything I do will be on one of those two platforms more than likely.